Hello everybody, welcome to Heart's Home. I'm your host Lizzie Siegel, and I'm so delighted to be sharing with you the first episode of my podcast. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about my story and share with you kind of why I'm creating this podcast and where the name of it comes from, and tell you a little bit about my journey that has led me to this point that I am recording a podcast, and also the work that I do with people and how you can get involved, and there's so many different ways. So let's first start with the naming of this podcast, Heart's Home. This name is so special to me, and I'm filming this podcast, recording this podcast today, just after having left Koh Phangan, Thailand. It is the place where my heart feels at home. I first went there in 2010 in December on a vacation, and I just fell in love with the place. It really held my heart, and ever since then I had been wanting to go back. And it wasn't until just this February of 2020 that I actually made my way back to Koh Phangan. I'd been back to Thailand many a time since then, but I hadn't gone back to that particular island. And so when I returned in February, again I had that feeling that this is where I belong. This is where my heart feels at home. The heart was home for me when I was there back in 2010 and even now. So Heart's Home, spelled HEART''S, home, Heart's Home. I like to play with words, and that apostrophe S can lend itself to the heart is home. And that's how I feel when I am in Koh Phangan, Thailand, or the home that belongs to the heart. And again, that home for me, that home that feels most belonging to me is when I'm in Koh Phangan, Thailand. There's just this vibe that I get from the island, and it's also said to be on a bed of crystals, so maybe that's where that vibe comes from for me, because I'm highly in tune with vibrations, which I'll tell you more about throughout this episode. So this is where the name comes from. It had such a special meaning to me, and it's also the name of my one-to-one mentoring container, where I work with people to help them know and live their bigger purpose. It's also something that I've been working on for the last few years, knowing and living my bigger purpose, and I'm so happy and proud to say that I am finally stepping into what it is that is my bigger purpose in life. So a little bit about me. I have been an international teacher for the last 15 years. And I've been a teacher for even longer than that, in different respects of life. And I've always known that I'm a teacher. That gift or talent really showed itself to me kind of early on in life, and I knew that that was something I would do throughout my life. But it wasn't until February 2020 when I went to Koh Phangan, Thailand, and had a super big revelation and experience that I realized that I'm also a healer, and I have this gift that I can offer the world. I'm an energy healer, and more specifically, I am a Reiki healer. And it's so wonderful to actually just be able to sing this at the top of my lungs and tell the world that this is what I am. And I know that I even had like a little bit of resistance with wanting to share that at first, because sometimes it can be off-putting to certain people that you call yourself a healer, or maybe people don't really resonate with it. And then just recently I actually thought, this is who I am, and I need to step into my power and fully embrace me. And I am all the woo. I believe in everything spiritual, and I am the woo. So I'm going to embrace it all and just live this life fully and unapologetically. And I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. So, I mean, if you're still listening, awesome. I'm so happy to have you here. Let me teach you all about the things that I have learned in the last, well, more than decade, but specifically the last 6 months that I've learned about healing. It's what I'm super excited to share. And I also wanted to share a lot about how I work with manifestation. And I didn't really realize until relatively recently that I am a manifester, and I've been manifesting things my whole life without really knowing that I was doing that. But because I've been stepping into this world of spirituality and learning more about manifestation, I've understood that I've actually been doing it for a really long time. I just didn't know it. So a lot of my story begins before September of 2010. Actually, I guess it really begins in about May of 2010. I was in Teachers College, and I read an article about this student who had a professor, and there was an exchange program, and it was for Italy, and she wanted to go to Italy, and she said, one day if I go to Italy, and her professor said, no, one day when you go to Italy, make it as if it's already happened. And when I read that article, something just clicked for me, and I was like, ooh, I like that, I'm going to hold on to that. And so instead of saying like one day if blah 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 blah, I started thinking and saying out loud, one day when I do this, or one day when yada yada yada. And didn't that have such an impact on my life? So I manifested that I would be able to teach somewhere else in the world, and I just wanted to travel the world, and I knew that. And so I wanted to travel and teach right away after university. So I had an undergraduate degree in English and psychology, a double major, and then I had my teaching degree with a specialty in English. And I chose to manifest for myself that I would get to travel and teach. And that happened really, really quickly. I put it out there into the world. I asked friends who on Facebook if they had anybody teaching abroad and knew of opportunities, and sure enough, I was put into contact with some people in South Korea, and I manifested that one day when I teach in South Korea, I don't know exactly what it was I manifested, to be honest, I can't quite remember, but I knew it was like when I teach in South Korea. And so about a couple weeks later, I had a job interview, and about 2 months later, I was living in South Korea, and it was awesome. I really felt that that was something I needed to do, and I just took off and did it. And that opened me up to this entire world of international teaching that I never knew existed. And it was absolutely beautiful. And from there, I moved to Kazakhstan, and I taught there for a couple of years, and that was an amazing experience. I taught at an American international school there, and I met a lifelong friend, and we both went to a job fair in Bangkok, Thailand, oddly enough, and we both were offered a job at this American international school in Kuwait, and sure enough, we accepted the job and went there together. This was in 2013, and it was such a great opportunity, such a great experience, and I ended up but until now, not leaving there. And it has such an impact on my story, me living in Kuwait, in terms of how everything has gone for me. And so I wanted to just share about that a little bit more. When I first moved to Kuwait, I taught grade 5, and it was a beautiful experience. I really loved it. It was so great. And I remember that there was one evening before the start of school, and this is what I'm going to call my little series of unfortunate events, and just tell you kind of like the challenges that appeared in my life that have led me to where I am now. And so we were going to play volleyball. I had a group of friends, and we would play volleyball just for fun in the evenings. And it was the night before school started, and I remember before we went into the school, I had a thought like, wouldn't that be awful if I broke my foot the night before volleyball? And I don't even know why, the night before school started. And I don't even know why I had this thought, but it totally crossed my mind. And sure enough, that thought manifested into my reality, and I broke my foot that night playing volleyball. I landed on another player, and the instant I landed, I knew my foot was broken. It was painful. And this little setback in life set me on a downward spiral for quite a while. Now, I know that it wasn't just me manifesting that I would break my foot and this was the problem. There was some misalignment in my life that caused me to get to this place. And I had some more misalignments that kept coming up for me. So I broke my foot. I couldn't move for 3 months, or not move, but like I couldn't walk for 3 months basically. And this was really, really challenging in my life. It set me into a very grumpy mindset. And it also caused me to gain a lot of weight, which was really frustrating because I was an active person and now all of a sudden I wasn't. It was really, really hard. But of course, I got through that moment, and then life returned to normal. I worked out really a lot, and I tried to get off the weight and all of this stuff. And there were just, a lot of things that compounded in the next couple years after that I was not happy with myself. I was so upset at the way I looked. I was so upset at the way I felt. It was just not me anymore. It wasn't the me that I knew. And this caused me to really be out of alignment with myself because I didn't love myself in those moments. And when you don't love yourself, a lot of bad stuff can be present in your life. And I didn't know this at the time. I didn't really realize it. And I didn't have the tools to deal with it at the time. And so I wasn't happy with myself, and I kept being this grumpy human. And then in 2017, I was at another low place in my life, and one day I was just getting ready for school, and I went to pick up my makeup, and I felt something in my back shift, and I knew something was not okay, and I felt instant excruciating pain, and I actually had slipped my discs, a few discs in my lower back, picking up my makeup bag. Go figure. And again, it wasn't just a simple accident or a simple something happened. There was a lot of misalignment in my life, so much so that my body was telling me to slow down and I just wasn't listening. And so it literally forced me to slow down. And then fast forward a couple weeks later, and I actually I was on my way to tutoring. I had a driver who would come and pick me up, and that day when he picked me up, I noticed there was a little fender problem at the front of the car, and I was like, oh, are you okay? Did something happen? And the driver was like, yeah. Then he kind of shrugged it off, and I just thought, okay, nothing of it, and that maybe it had happened at some other point. They just hadn't had it fixed. But for some reason, I guess my intuition was telling me to go sit in the front that day, and so I did. And we were driving to tutoring, and it took me a while to realize that something was kind of wrong. And it wasn't until we were headed off on the direction where there's where we would turn to go to the house that I realized the driver was going the wrong way. And I was kind of saying like, oh, like, or like thinking, oh, we're going the wrong way. But then I also noticed there was something really wrong with him, and he was making like this clicking noise, like, and I was and his head was lolling and his eyes were drooping, and it was basically just enough time for me to grab the wheel, and we were veering towards the right, and normally we like turn left, but we were veering towards the right on this oncoming there was traffic in front of us. There were 3 lanes that would go one way and 3 lanes that would go another way, and I didn't have enough time to do anything other than grab the wheel. He had all the control of the pedals, and miraculously, guided by my angels, I was able to miss every vehicle around us. We zoomed past those 6 lanes of traffic and kept driving quickly, and finally into a ditch, and we hit a concrete barrier, and there was like so much noise and crashing sounds, and then the airbags exploded and it smelled like fire. My hair had caught on a fire a little bit, and probably from the canister of the airbags. And I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, what's happening? But also going, okay, we're fine. I'm alive. He's alive. Everything's okay. And it was, my back was, oh my gosh, my back was in so much pain, and my arm hurt, my leg, like there was just a lot going on. And people came to help us, and alhamdulillah, thank God, praise be to God, we were both okay. I mean, there was some stuff going on, but we were both okay in general. Both of us survived. Nobody else was hurt. Thank God so much. And it was like one of that moment also that I was saved by grace. And there's been other moments in my life that have kind of been like this, where I've been miraculously protected, and I know that I have a team surrounding me that is always keeping me safe, and I'm blessed to have that. And so this car crash also really put a damper on me and my mood and my life and my health. It made it really, really challenging. I put on even more weight. I got an even worse mood. I really, really hated where I was at that place in time. It was a dark, dark moment of my life, long moment of my life. So 2018 got even worse. I feel like I hit rock bottom. I was in so much pain all the time, and I had tried lots of times to lose weight. I'd done a bunch of fad dieting and crash courses and all sorts of things, just trying to get this weight off, but it was not sustainable for me, and I was in so much pain that even when I was exercising, it was really, really difficult. And I went to the doctors often, but at one point I was just like, I can't deal with this. And they were like, well, we could do back surgery and put some rods in your back and fuse your lower vertebrae together. And I remember just thinking, what is this? This can't be the rest of my life. I want to have children. I want to be able to bend over and pick them up, etc. And I was just faced with this like life-altering moment where I was like, what is this? And they're like, well, you could lose weight. And this is one of the most frustrating things to hear, especially when you're overweight, because of course you want to lose weight, but when you're in so much pain, it's so hard to move. It's not that it's not an option, it's just so much more difficult. And I just felt like the world was caving in on me. And I had my wonderful partner suggest that I could do a weight loss surgery, because in Kuwait you can have these surgeries privately or even in public hospitals, and they're far more accessible. You don't have to be on long waiting lists or anything. And I was so against this idea at first. I grew up thinking that being overweight was terrible and awful and shameful, and you're bad if you're overweight. And I had always been praised for being like active and thinner, and I was just in so much pain and so much shame and so much self-loathing at this point. And so that also didn't seem like something I wanted to do. But he presented it to me as like, it's not something shameful to do. If this is going to be what helps you to change your life, if it's a tool, it's a strategy you can use. And like having this perspective, I became more open to the idea. I sat with it for a while, and then I finally thought, okay, well, let me see. If this is going to be the thing that changes my life, it catapults me in the right direction, I'm going to go inquire about it. And I had a doctor who said, well, the worst that could happen is that you lose weight and you still need back surgery, so we could try it. We could give it a go. And I went for that option because it seemed like a better option than having my spine be really rigid and permanent forever. So I went with it, and this was one of the greatest decisions of my life, and I'm so thankful to all the people who supported me throughout the process and encouraged me to do it, and helped me to see that I could release some of the shame around having gained so much weight, and that having a tool to help you get to where you need to go is totally okay. Tools come in many shapes and forms, and this for me was a tool. So I had a VSG, a vertical sleeve gastrectomy, or a gastric sleeve, where they remove part of your stomach. I did that in January 2019. And for me, I looked at it like the second chance for life. I had seen some people be really successful at it. I had seen some people not be so successful at it. And I was so determined to make this be my second chance for life. And so I worked so hard, and the day of my surgery, after my surgery, I got up out of my hospital bed, and even though I was in so much pain, and I can remember it was terrible, I vowed to myself that I would walk 10,000 steps every day for a year. And I did that almost every day, walking 10,000 steps every day for almost an entire year. For the entire year, with only a few days missing out. There was something for me about a year commitment that I was like, I can do this, I can make this happen. And sure enough, I could, and I did. I lost 40 pounds very quickly, and then my weight plateaued for a while, as can happen. And in this time, during the 2019 school year, I realized that where I was in my teaching career was not where I wanted to be. And I realized that as I got healthier, and as I got rid of these limiting beliefs that I had had for most of my life, I wanted to teach PE because I wanted to teach about health and mindfulness and well-being. And so I tried to get into a PE position, and I was met with some resistance and had some other limiting beliefs placed upon me that I was a homeroom teacher and that was where I would be. And that didn't really sit right with me, and I knew that I could be whoever I wanted to be and whatever I wanted to be, and I was determined about this. And I had a wonderful principal of mine also believe in me and also see my passion and my fire and the fight that I was putting in to be the person that I wanted to be, not who others determined that I would be. And she also helped me get into this PE position. And so for the following academic year, the 2020-2021 academic year, I got to sign a contract to be a PE teacher. So over the 2019 fall-winter period, I took my PE Level 1 certification from Canada because I'm a Canadian-trained teacher. And then in 2020, around January, that's when the pandemic started to become real in Kuwait. And then we went into lockdown. And for me, while lockdown was a challenging situation, of course, I took it as time to really work on me. I took it as a sign that I could focus in on me and really become the best version that I possibly could. And then I continued to take my PE Part 2 in the spring of 2020, so that by the summer of 2020 I would have it finished, and come the 2021, and come the 2021 still 2020 school year, I would be ready to teach PE. Well, the world had different plans for me. The universe was like, maybe you're not ready yet, or maybe there's some other things you need to learn along the way. And Kuwait was on full lockdown at this point, and summer 2020, I didn't go home to Canada like I normally do in the summer. Traveling conditions were challenging, and it just seemed better and easier to stay in Kuwait. My friends and I had a grand old time having sleepovers, enjoying each other's company, baking bread, making cakes, doing all sorts of fun things. And it was really a lovely time to get to be together and enjoy our time. Then in August 2020, because of all the things that were happening because of the pandemic, and our school was virtual still. We had gone virtual back in February of 2020, actually, and we were still virtual come the school year starting. Our school I had to move apartments. There were some cutbacks of all sorts of things, and this also impacted my teaching role. And so I had been teaching 4th grade for the past couple of years, and because they were cutting down on roles and we were online, they needed me to still be in my grade 4 position teaching homeroom instead of, which is like all the general subjects, instead of moving into my PE position. And this was such a hit for me, and I didn't understand why this was happening, and I was really quite miserable about it. And I tried to make the best of the situation, but it was really, really weighing on my heart heavily. It was so hard for me. It really created some misalignment in my life, in terms of the way I was thinking about it and managing myself and my attitude and not trusting that there was a bigger plan and there was something even better in store for me, which I know now, and it makes me emotional to think, because I was so misaligned in my own life, and I caused so much disharmony that I caused a dis-ease in my body. It manifested in my body, and I noticed in maybe September, maybe October, but definitely around that time, November, that I was not well. And even though I was doing all the things, I was exercising daily, I was being as healthy as possible. I was eating a mostly plant-based and even vegan diet at the time, and I was so healthy, and I was doing everything to feel my best. There was something that was wrong. And then one day I noticed a lump on my arm, and that caused me to really pause and need to really, well, it made me kind of panic, actually. Not just pause, but it made me panic, and it made me consider all the other things that were going on. Like, I would wake up in the morning and I couldn't move my hands. I would put my foot on the floor and it was so painful. I would get to my yoga mat and it was just so much pain, and it wasn't normal. And in my life before, I had been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, by doctors, because they couldn't really figure out what was wrong, and that just seemed like a thing to call it. But that never really sat right with me, and I knew it wasn't that. So I went to the doctor because of this lump in my arm. I found a doctor for arthritis, because to me that was the best way I could describe the pain that was happening in my body. And he did a lot of tests, and I'm so grateful for the healthcare system in Kuwait and the insurance that my school provides me with, because I didn't have to wait months. I was able to get in there right away, and he listened to me, and he didn't just dismiss me because I looked young and healthy. He listened to my complaints and said, okay, well, if you're feeling this, we're going to find out what it is. And it took a few tests, a few different kind of tests in a few weeks, but it turns out that I had an autoimmune disease had developed in my body. Oh, and I also had been going through like some allergic reactions to foods that I had never been allergic to before, and then all of a sudden I was allergic to, and that was kind of bizarre, so I knew there was something wrong. But yeah, it turns out I had developed an autoimmune disease, and it was kind of like lupus, but it wasn't exactly lupus because it didn't have all the what you call it, the classifications that make it lupus, and so it fit into its own category called an undifferentiated connective tissue disease. And this was devastating for me. I couldn't believe that there was another awful thing showing up in my life, and it was really, really challenging for me. It made me just, again, not trust and not believe that life would ever kind of just jive for me, and I was so frustrated. But I got on medicine. It took a while to have that even out, and finally, and oh yeah, my hair had also been falling out like a lot, and it was like it looked short and it looked sparse, and it was, all these things were just making me have a hard time having faith. But I took the medicine. I kept doing all the things that I was doing to make myself feel better, and I was slowly getting better. And then finally the pain started to go away, and that was great. And then I was really into yoga over this time, probably from 2019, really. I got into yoga around November 2019. I had really gotten into yoga, and then I kept doing it. So here's like a whole year of me practicing yoga and really enjoying it. And I had been practicing with a friend of mine, and I had this idea that I would like to actually take my 200-hour yoga teacher training, and she encouraged me to go for it. Like, yeah, why not? Of course, try it out. And I looked for different yoga schools online because we were still in the midst of the pandemic, and I came across this one called My Vinyasa Practice. And the universe was sending me messages and letting me know that this was the one, because as I'm reading this website and reading all about it, this woman who started My Vinyasa Practice, her name is Michelle Young, she started the practice, she started her company, her business, while she was living and teaching in Kuwait. And I thought, universe, what a beautiful sign. Okay, that's the one. That's what I'm going to take. And it was kind of like one of those moments where I started trusting again and believing that, like, everything's going to work out fine. Everything's going to be great. And My Vinyasa Practice, by the way, such an amazing program to take your 200-hour teacher training with. They have amazing mentoring support, amazing live online classes and workshops that really offer so much value, so much enrichment to your life, not just for teaching yoga, but just for learning in general. And it's where I really began to understand yoga on a deeper level. So when I started my yoga journey, I started with Yoga with Adriene on YouTube, and she's also fantastic. She helps you really understand what feels good in your body and following your intuition and like tapping into your mind, and that was a really beautiful introduction for me. But then when I started to learn more about yoga and learn more about the philosophies and what it was all about, and understand that it's more than just a movement and an exercise and a time to kind of be quiet or be with yourself, when I understood the teachings behind it, it all made sense for me. And in the show notes below, I'll link My Vinyasa Practice. I have an affiliate link that you can sign up for if you're interested in your 200-hour yoga teacher training, that you can check out below in the show notes. Anyway, as I learned more about yoga, there was this topic that really resonated with me called the kosha bodies, and it was talking about kind of the layers of people, as if we're Russian nesting dolls or matryoshkas, or like layers of an onion. Or one of my favorite analogies is that our soul is like the light bulb, and then the layers on top are like lampshades. And it really made me understand how I even got into yoga. It started with the physical body. It was a physical thing for me. It was an exercise thing for me. And then even the food and what I was consuming in terms of food, media, and everything else, really. And then the next layer being the prana, or vital life force body. And I hadn't really known much about this before, but it made sense because prana is like the breath body. It is the energy that animates all life, and it made sense to me. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. Vital life force energy. Without breath, without this energy that rides on the breath, we cease to exist. And so that really resonated with me. We need the breath to have all the functions and systems in our body operate. And then there was the next layer about the mental body, which now I understand is different from the next layer, which is the intellectual or knowledge body. I didn't really realize that they were separate until that moment, separate and all of the same thing at the same time, but that they're different, distinguished. And then finally we get to the soul and the spirit, and this really resonated with me, and it took me into this deeper love of yoga and wanting to know more and getting more and more into spirituality, and then thinking about energy and how we use energy in life and how everything is energy. That came from understanding prana. And then I really got into, I wanted to learn more about Ayurveda, because it talks about the prana and how our food has prana in it, and how we use our food to invigorate and help our lives. And it just gave me this whole new perspective on things. And so diving deeper into yoga was something so amazing for me in my life. And then I realized I want to be a yoga teacher. I was already kind of doing yoga a bit, and I was taking the yoga teacher training, but I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And so over the summer of 2021, I started teaching friends for free, random people I would meet on my travels, some things online, and I really, really loved it. And then when I returned to Kuwait in in August of 2021, I was ready to step into my PE role. And yes, indeed, I was going to be stepping into my PE role, teaching KG1 and KG2 PE. So 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, I was their am their PE teacher. And I also really wanted to bring yoga into the classroom and mindfulness into the classroom, because I realized the benefits of it that go so much deeper than just the physical practice of the yoga asanas, which are super important, but I wanted that mindfulness piece to be brought into the classroom, to be able to start teaching children from a young age the regulation of the nervous system, which I probably actually didn't learn until I was that years old. 34 years old, actually. I had, and sometimes still have, a very unregulated nervous system, and my entire life I spent with this unregulated nervous system, and I didn't know how to control it, and I didn't know what to do with it until yoga was part of my life. And it literally changed the way I showed up in the world and was able to view the world, because now I had these tools and strategies and methods I could use when I got upset. And before, sadly, I have to report, I didn't have those. I didn't know how to calm down. I didn't know when I was entering a state of panic. I didn't know that I had been dealing with anxiety. Well, I knew I'd been dealing with anxiety for most of my life, but I could finally say that I wasn't plagued with anxiety anymore once I started learning yoga, because I learned how to regulate my nervous system. And it took me 34 years to get to that point, and I'm so grateful, because dealing with anxiety for that long, and even a lot of depression throughout the years, was so challenging. But then I had the tools to regulate my nervous system, and I knew that I had to share that with everybody and anybody. I also started teaching yoga classes to other teachers at my school. I developed this beautiful small yoga community, and we'd practice yoga a couple times a week. I would offer full moon or new moon yoga classes on the beach every couple weeks, or at least once a month. And I offered just different offerings for yoga so that I could reach more people. And I started teaching private yoga classes, and it was beautiful. And then in January, I started to explore the idea of teaching at yoga studios in Kuwait, and that was a beautiful experience that I started for a little while, and still somewhat continued until now. But realizing that there was a way to share my love for yoga and these beautiful lessons I had learned with others, and I wanted to reach more people. So the winter break came with its own challenges. The winter break of 2021, 2022, I was meant to travel, and my partner ended up not being able to due to COVID, and this really put just a bad mindset for me for a while, and I wasn't able to get out of it right away. I was having some trouble with it, and then I was still, I am a free spirit and I love to travel, and COVID really put a damper on all my traveling, and so it was really hard for me, and there were other opportunities to travel, but I was being very impatient. And then the February break was coming. We have a National Liberation Day break in February, and that break was coming, and around this time I was just having a little bit of a meltdown in my life because I was so impatient and I wanted things to be happening in my timeline, and I forgot to trust the universe again. And so I love to say, I heard it somewhere, I can't remember where, but breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. And indeed, that's what happened. I was really worried if I should even travel because of the pandemic was still kind of a thing, and would traveling be the right decision? And I melted down and talked to my mom. I talked to my best friend, and my best friend was like, well, it could be great, so why not give it a go? And I trusted my mom, I trusted my partner, I trusted my best friend, and I took a leap of faith, and I decided to go on a yoga retreat to Thailand. I had seen a friend of mine, a yoga teacher friend of mine in Kuwait, post about this place that she had just been to in Thailand, and they had a sound healing session, and it really intrigued me, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. So I had messaged her and I asked, what is this place? And she told me the name of it was Orion Healing Center in Koh Phangan, Thailand, and that resonated with me entirely. The Orion's my favorite constellation. It was in the song that I loved when I was growing up, and it just, yes, that was where I needed to go. I felt I was in tune with my intuition more and more, and I was like, that is where I need to go. So I booked my trip, and I went to Thailand, to Koh Phangan, Thailand, and I was so happy to go back there because I'd remembered how much I loved it back in 2010. So I returned, and the first moments I arrive at this place, I asked at the check-in counter, because there was a Reiki session that was part of my package. I asked the check-in ladies, I was like, so could you just explain to me what is Reiki? Because the only other experience I had with it was the summer that had just passed. I had a Reiki session with my friend back home in Canada, and I didn't expect anything. I didn't know what to expect, but it was a beautiful session nonetheless, and I kind of liked it, and I wanted to experience more of that, but I still didn't quite know what it was. And so the lady at the front desk said, well, you can ask the Reiki master, he's right there. And he was passing right by me at that time. And I asked him, okay, so what's Reiki? And he's like, well, tomorrow we're starting the Reiki Level 1 course. The first day is all about the information of what Reiki is. You're so welcome to come and learn about it. Information's free. And then maybe even if you choose, you will want to sign up for the course. And I was like, okay. So the next day I went, and it was like as if every single word that this man was speaking was directed exactly to me. It was like he was meant to share every word with just me. Everything made sense to me finally. There were 2 other girls in the course, and when they talked and the stories that they shared and what I shared, they understood me. And so the thing is that my entire life I've felt energy, and it's I'm sure some of you who are listening can also resonate with this. And it's something that I couldn't quite explain to people, but like there would be pulsating energy in my body. I could feel it in my hands. I would walk into a room and feel the energy. Electronic things would maybe sometimes break around me or stop working for certain periods of time, especially if I was stressed out or if I was forcing something. Now that I look back, if I was trying to force something to happen, or if I needed something to not be working for another reason or not. But I didn't realize all this until these moments when I'm hearing all about Reiki, which is divine universal energy, and that we can tap into it and use it to help heal ourselves and others. And every story that was relayed to me just had me more and more tears streaming down my face, and I felt again, yes, my heart is home. I felt like this is what I'm meant to do. Ooh, I'm a little emotional at these moments because really it's what I'm meant to do with my life. And I always knew I was meant to be a teacher, but this being a healer and stepping and even realizing that was an actual thing that people could really be and even learn how to be. I just thought maybe it's like Maybelline, maybe she's born with it, maybe not. But I mean, I guess I was born with it. I wasn't in tune with it. I wasn't really aware of what it was. And now all of a sudden I was aware, and it was like my world finally made sense. And I knew that I wasn't crazy, because there were moments that, like, you know, my friends would be like, oh, okay, I'm sure that happened. Like, I'm sure that energy, or it's just a coincidence, like those kinds of things. And it made me like feel a little crazy at times. But I knew that there was an energy within me that I was feeling. And also being so intuitive to other people's energies, and like even empathic and picking up on other people's energies, and even like me being able to feel other people's pain or feel other people's joy. It was just something that was deeper than I could explain. But now I could explain it. And so I learned Reiki level 1 and 2, and I realized my gift as a healer, and I started stepping into that. When I returned to Kuwait, I knew that I wanted to further my business, because I'm not just teaching yoga now. I was like, there's more to it. I'm going to offer Reiki. I'm going to do some healing as well. And so I started this business coaching program that set me up to learn a lot about business, because I mean, I didn't know very much about it at all, and I'm still learning lots. But it helped me to realize that I could step into my power fully, and I could be and do anything that I want to be and do. And it brought me back to those days in university where it was like, yeah, I can manifest anything. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so I knew when I decided to start my business and really step into my business as the CEO and founder of it, that this was going to be the next phase of my life. And so I've been working on my business wholeheartedly for the last 6 months, really pouring into it and investing in myself and investing in my business and learning as much as I can. And then this summer was coming, and I went on a trip to Europe for a few weeks. There were so many beautiful synchronicities that kept happening. And so for the past 6 months or so, maybe even longer, the universe has been so clearly showing me signs and guiding me along the way, whether it be through number patterns, like angel number patterns, or through meeting certain people at certain times, or through the manifestations I've really intentionally been working on. I took a manifestation course in January that really helped me to understand how to manifest in a way that was intentional. And so I've been doing that for the last half a year. And when I was in Europe, there was so many other little synchronicities that kept showing up along the way and telling me I was on the right path. And I knew then the next step that I needed to take, because I had been thinking of the idea, was to go to Thailand and to do my Reiki level 3, or Reiki level master training and teacher training. And that is indeed what I just completed about a week ago. And that experience on its own was beautiful. I went to Orion Healing Center again, and there was a little mix-up, and it turns out I was the only person in the course, and it was with a different Reiki master than the one I had previously worked with, and it was meant to be on purpose because this beautiful human, her name's Esther, and I'm so grateful to have met her and to have had the honor of being taught by her. She really helped me to understand so much more about Reiki and how to be of service to the world and to myself, to help heal myself on all levels, and to really, I already believe, but to believe even deeper and with more conviction that I can step into this path and I can be the person that I believe that I need to be and show up in the world as. And I had been asking the universe a lot if this is like what I'm meant to be doing and be a healer, and the universe has kind of been answering me in different ways and confirming it. But she also tapped into the universe and asked and gave me more guidance that yes, indeed, I'm meant to be a healer here, and I'm meant to help uplift the collective consciousness of our planet. And I'm so blessed to be able to step into this role now and to fully embrace it and embrace all my feminine energy and embrace all this divine universal energy and use it to be a vessel to be of service to others. And so with that, I know that as I continue to work with different people in different capacities, I know my offerings, and I know that I've been working on this program for the last 6 months called Heart's Home, as I mentioned before. It's a one-to-one mentoring and guidance container where I help those who know they have a bigger purpose live their purpose. And it's about discovering who you really are and discovering your passions and talents and learning how you can use your gifts to serve yourself and others. And it's a total transformative process because over the last few years I've done the things that work and the things that don't work. I figured out the process and I've been able to like compartmentalize it and package it into a neat little 12-week program that is really transformational. And so I'm working with others to help them be their highest version of self. And so if that is of interest to anybody who's listening, there's a link in the show notes here called Discovery Call, and you are so invited to book a discovery call with me to talk to me more about this one-to-one program that I offer, because maybe it's exactly what you've been looking for. And I know that it's going to be so powerful for those who it's meant for. I also am working, still teaching yoga classes, and I'm offering those online at different times throughout the month for free. I offer different workshops for free online, so check out my Instagram at Namasteplantbased, just as it sounds, for any of those updates, and everybody's welcome to join from anywhere. And I also now know that I'm meant to be a Reiki healer and teacher. So I'm going to continue offering Reiki healing, and I'm going to be offering Reiki teacher training, Reiki training. I'll be the teacher, pardon me. Reiki training in the near future. So stay tuned for that. And if you're really interested in that, if you're really interested in learning more about energy and how we can tap into the divine universal energy, send me an email, let me know, and I'll put you on the wait list so you can be the first to know and be part of that with me. I'll be doing online versions as well as in-person versions, and I want to eventually even be offering retreats that are beautiful healing retreats full of yoga and Reiki and wellness and good, holistic, delicious foods. So please, if you're interested in these things, send me an email or shoot me a message on Instagram and let me know, and I will get in touch with you and keep you in the loop, because these things I'm so excited to be sharing with you, and they'll be ready soon. And so with that, I feel like I've told the story that I need to tell and the story that wanted to be told. I'm very grateful that you've listened. I'm very grateful that you've tuned in. I hope you continue to tune in. If you want to speak to me on my podcast, if you are in any way, shape, or form connected to anything that I'm saying today and you'd love to have a conversation with me, this podcast is going to be a little bit of everything, because I don't like to limit myself entirely. I'm going to have conversations with others. I'm going to give meditations, share guided meditations on here. I'm going to share other people's stories. I'll be telling you more about the different things I'm understanding from yoga and Reiki, and just sharing the knowledge that I have. So it's going to be this beautiful compilation of all these things that are just love and energy and light. So yeah, if you're feeling called to speak to me, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me by any of the ways in my show notes, the email, Instagram, or booking a call with me. And I look forward to chatting with you. I look forward to sharing with you. And thank you for listening. Wishing you the most beautiful day wherever you are. From my heart to yours, all the light and love. Peace out.